Good morning. We are on the record for case number 2024-00255, electronic application of Starfire LLC for a certificate to construct an approximately 210 megawatt merchant solar electric generating facility in Knox, Breathitt, and Perry counties, Kentucky pursuant to KRS 278-700 and 807 KAR 5.110. That's it. I'm Mary Pat Regan. I'm the Commissioner on the Kentucky Public Service Commission. I also serve on the Kentucky State Board of Electric Generation and Transmission Siting, and I will be presiding over today. Joining me today is Jansen Hammock. He is serving for proxy for Jeff Knoll, Secretary of the Economic Development Cabinet, and the other member of the sitting board, Zachary Weinberg, will be on via video. And I think we have him on, correct?
Yes.
Good morning.
Morning.
At this time, I'm going to caution everyone to set your phones to silent or turn them off. And the sitting board is hosting this hearing in person and via video conferencing. So for that reason, I'm going to ask you to mute your microphones if you're not speaking. And if you use a phone for the audio and computer for the video, turn the computer audio off as well. We get a lot of back noise in here. If you're in a room with several people on their own computers, turn the computer audio off, all but one computer. And please alert the sitting board if you're experiencing technology failure that prevents your participation. And then attorneys should contact staff using the previously supplied contact information. The hearing today is for the purpose of taking evidence in this matter. At this time, we will have the entry of appearance of counsel. I'll also request that each party's counsel identify their witnesses.
Yes, good morning, Your Honor. Greg Dutton on behalf of the applicant. I also have with me today Pierce Stevenson. And then we actually have our two summer legal interns in the back with us today. And then we have 7 witnesses today. We have David Gill, Robert Roy, Annie Winters, Brian Patton, Fletcher Mangum, Rich Kirkland. I think that was all 7. And Colin. Last name? Cannon. Colin Cannon.
Okay, thank you. And counsel for sitting board?
Commissioner, I'm Wright Williams for Siting Board staff, and with me I have Thomas Warrington.
Okay. And I've been advised that public notice has been given and filed into the record, is that correct?
That's correct. Public notice was given on May 28th and 29th in 3 local newspapers and filed into the record on June 11th.
Okay. And are there any outstanding motions?
No outstanding motions.
Great. We'll go into the public comment section. Anyone wishing to provide a public comments may do so by following the instructions located on our website. Written comments can also be submitted by sending an email to psccomment@ky.gov. And let's see, I think we have someone in the room that wants to speak, and we also have someone remotely that wants to speak as well. Are they on? No, I don't see anyone else, so.
Should be Bonnie Koblitz.
Oh, there she is. Hi, Bonnie. Did you have public comments you wanted to make? Bonnie, do you want to take your microphone off mute? I think she's on mute. Oh, there you are. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right.
If you would like to go ahead, each person will have 5 minutes. We have one person in the room here, and we'll let you go first.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm so glad the connection worked. My name is Bonnie Koblitz. I live at 13050 Woodville Road in Keville, Kentucky. And I'm speaking today in support of case number 2024-00255, the Starfire project. Why am I speaking today? I have solar panels on my own property. They were installed in 2017. My summer electric bills are $20 a month. That's with the AC running. And it's really, really nice, but not my main motivation for installing the solar panels. For 30 years, I had been hearing about how the earth was warming, the oceans were warming, and I saw many computer model predictions that showed dire consequences. I wanted to do what I could do to help slow all that down. 30 years ago, I did not have the resources to invest in solar power on my own property. And now I'm seeing some of those consequences that I mentioned before. As soon as my circumstances changed, I had them installed. I've not experienced any problems with the panels. It doesn't matter what the weather is, sunny or cloudy, they still produce electricity. I did it because I thought it was the right and the responsible thing to do. I've helped fund other solar projects, and I've spoken in support of a large project that's located just about a mile from my home now. I think it's one of the best ways that we can provide electrical power that's reliable for communities. What a great way to transform this coal mine property into prosperity and clean power for the community without harming the land or people's health. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. And I think we have someone in the room that wants to speak as well. If you want to step up to the microphone, give me your name and address.
Hi, my name is Eric Dixon, and I'm at 6605 Norway Drive, Louisville, Kentucky 40214.
Thank you.
11%. That is the share of workers that were hired locally during the recent construction of a large solar facility in East Kentucky. In my testimony today, I will demonstrate that it is unrealistic for a new major solar project, Starfire, to achieve the 44% local hiring promise in their application without significant action and requirements from this board. Good morning. My name is Eric Dixon, and I'm a senior researcher with the Ohio River Valley Institute. ORVI is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that produces data-driven research and proposes policies to improve economic performance and standards of living in Appalachia and beyond. Last summer, the Foundation for Appalachia, Kentucky retained ORVI to analyze the projected local impacts of the Starfire project. I earned my master's degree from Duke University, where I studied economic development policy. I currently reside in Louisville, and I've lived in Knott County, so I'm familiar with the area around the Starfire solar project. This project will transform formerly mined land and the sunshine beating down on that land into emissions-free electricity at a large scale. Generating clean power on degraded land is a positive development for our energy grid and our environment. What remains to be seen is whether it will be good for the local economy. Bright Knight retained Mangum Economics to do an economic impact analysis. We reviewed Mangum's report and interviewed one of the report's co-authors in 2024. Most of Mangum's economic impact estimates are reasonable. However, and this is a critical exception, Mangum projects that the Starfire project will support 192 construction jobs from the state, and 85 of them, or 44%, will be filled by workers from 4 nearby counties. Mangum does not specify the basis for that projection and acknowledges that it's not certain. So we wanted to know, Is that 44% projection realistic? The most direct comparison we have suggests that it is not. The Martin County Solar Project and the Starfire project share a lot in common. Both are large projects on former mining sites located in rural, mountainous areas in southeast Kentucky with construction workforces that are relatively small, especially relative to the project. The economic impact analysis for the Martin County project estimated that 62% of the construction jobs for that project would be filled by residents in Martin County. But according to the developer's testimony last October before this board, only 11% of the jobs ended up being filled by locals. So what happened? It wasn't for lack of local interest. 500 people came out to the local job fair. But local hiring on large projects like this is challenging. And the developer's testimony before this board revealed that the contract language with its EPC was too weak. There are solutions to this challenge. A strong contract should not just include binding commitments, but should also include a plan, a local hiring plan, and necessary investments for that plan. I outlined some best practices in my written comments, including a first source referral system for local workers. Commitments and funding for these programs can be secured via arrangements like a project labor agreement or a community benefits agreement. PLAs in particular can be an effective tool for meeting local hiring goals and for satisfying federal requirements for the IRA clean energy tax credits that presumably this project will seek. So, in closing, given that the Starfire project will support only one permanent local job directly, securing local jobs during construction is the linchpin of Starfire's local economic impact. The proposed pilot payments in this project are the same rate provided by the Martin County Solar Project, where locals are questioning the economic benefits of that project. Pilots are meaningful, but it is hard to see how the Starfire project truly benefits the local economy if it creates hundreds of jobs, just not for locals. In December, the editorial board of the Mountain Citizen summarized the local hiring of the Martin County project as, quote, big promises, bigger disappointments, end quote. I believe that Bright Knight genuinely wants to hire local and is making some big promises, but they will remain so without further commitments. Accordingly, I recommend that the siting board submit a post-hearing data request for and condition approval on the following: submitting the draft contract with its eventual EPC, which should be reviewed by this board to ensure strong local hiring provisions, engaging in good faith dialogue with building trades unions in Kentucky and the Starfire Community Coalition about the mutual benefits of a PLA or a CBA, submitting an executed CBA with the Starfire Community Coalition, which should be reviewed by the siting board to ensure that monies are committed at a fair rate. I have provided further details about my analysis and more recommendations in written comments that I will submit. With further action, it is my belief that Starfire could yield significant benefit for the local community, alongside those for our grid and our environment. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else? No, please.
Hi, my name is Matthew Benedict. I live at 416 Turner Ave, Hazard, Kentucky. The following is a comment on behalf of the Starfire Community Coalition. Thank you for the opportunity to share comments today. I'm speaking on behalf of the Starfire Community Coalition, a group of residents and organizations from Breathitt, Knott, Perry, and Floyd counties, who have come together to learn more about how major development projects, like the Starfire Renewable Power Project, can bring long-term benefits to the people who live and work in the region. We applaud Bright Knight's interest in the Starfire project being best in class, and we appreciate the steps Bright Knight has already taken, particularly their stated commitments to local hiring and funding community-led initiatives. These are outlined in the informational meetings Bright Knight conducted in our communities last year. See page 56 of the siting board application. and we welcome their intention to donate annually to the Foundation for Appalachian Kentucky through a non-donor advised fund. At the same time, we believe there is a unique opportunity here for Bright Nights and our communities to explore a shared path forward using tools like a Community Benefits Agreement, or a CBA. CBAs are voluntary agreements used across the country to ensure that community priorities are reflected in large-scale projects. They offer a transparent and collaborative structure for both developers and local stakeholders to define mutual goals. Rather than taking a position for or against the Starfire project at this time, the Coalition is focused on building a foundation of trust and dialogue. We invite Bright Night to join us in a learning process about CBAs, what they can look like, how they've worked in other communities, and how they might serve the unique context of Appalachian Kentucky. We know from experience that strong, well-structured local hiring plans like those supported by project labor agreements can help ensure commitments translate into outcomes. We're also interested in exploring opportunities like solar grazing that could offer creative and sustainable local benefits. As residents of a region that has seen many extractive industries come and go, we're hopeful that this project can be a part of a different kind of story, one rooted in partnership, equity, and long-term benefit. We respectfully request that the State Siting Board not make their decision until the August 1st deadline to give our coalition, Bright Nights, and other community stakeholders the time and space to explore this potential collaboration. Thank you again for your time and consideration. We look forward to the conversations ahead.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Nope. Online? Okay, counsel, at this time you may call your first witness. Please ask each of your witnesses to identify any documents they have in front of them when they testify.
Certainly, yes, thank you, Your Honor. May I just have one moment?
Sure.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll call David Gill.
Okay. Morning, Mr. Gill. If you could swear in.
Good morning.
Great. Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
I do.
And please state your name and address for the record.
David Gill, and our office is at 515 South Flagler Street in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Let me just see it. Any questions?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Gill, where do you work?
I work for a company by the name of Bright Night.
And what is your role with Bright Night?
I'm an executive vice president with Bright Night. I oversee development of our clean energy projects.
And what was your role with respect to this application?
I'm the lead developer on the project. I helped put together the application and helped assemble the team who helped put together the application, including outside consultants, as well as internal team.
And is there anything in the record that you'd like to change, amend, correct at this time?
No, there's not.
With that, I'll tender the witness.
Mr. Wright?
Good morning, Mr. Gill.
Good morning.
So I have a number of questions for you. Some of them are going to be, I know, are going to be more specific, so if you could just give the best answer and then direct me to a specific witness who can answer it.
Okay.
First, kind of in line with the public comments, discussions of local jobs and impacts. I understand it's too early in the project to have any contracts with contractors or anything like that. But do you have drafted contracts that you prepare or anything like that, or?
We don't yet, no.
Okay. Do you have any intention when it comes to contract terms concerning local hiring? Do you have any thoughts on that, or how you would ensure local hiring?
Yes, certainly, we encourage local hiring. We're going to press for it with EPCs. We have discussed this being a community project and doing, making strong efforts, not just in terms of local hiring, but community benefits, community contributions, I think it's a really unique project in the fact that it's a solar project on a former mine and converting solar mining site to a solar energy site, so it's a brownfield site, so it has unique attributes in that sense. And I think since the beginning, really the attraction of the project has been, that coal to solar story, as well as it being I think the largest the largest potential investment for a clean energy project in Eastern Kentucky, the history of Eastern Kentucky. And, as part of that, it's really, a project that's part of the community. We hope to hire as many local people on the project as we can. And certainly that's going to be part of our efforts with the EPCs and, hiring locally, both for the construction phase as well as the long-term operations phase.
You said you push the EPCs to encourage local hiring, essentially.
Right.
Have you, in previous projects, have you had mechanisms in contracts or anything like that to encourage that? Or what would the specific?
I have in my previous experience, not at Bright Night. Bright Night's a relatively new company, but I've worked with other companies before this. And certainly, there are levers and ways within the contracts that you can promote local hiring. A key piece is always how much you can find in locations and whether or not you can find, whether or not there's a labor force that's available and either has the training or there's training programs that can be put in place in order to find those laborers.
For this project, does Starfire have an interconnection agreement in place?
Not yet.
Will mining operations be complete by the time construction begins on the project?
Yes, on the project site.
Okay. It's my understanding there's still currently surface mining going on at the project site today, as of today.
At the project site, there's not actually mining. There's activity going on related to the mining activity nearby, but it's more like moving coal and kind of the processing piece of it, but not the actual mining piece.
Okay. And will that portion be complete by the time construction
Yes.
begins?
Yes.
Per the application, Starfire plans to use Road 1087, Bells Fork Road, for site access, which is currently blocked. How difficult or costly would it be to fully develop that road, or will it be to fully develop that road, make it accessible?
That's the plan is to use that road for access. I'm not sure exactly what the costs are to do that, but that's part of the plan that's baked into the economics of the project. That is our current access route. So part of that road is already accessible, but I think on the site visit, as you saw, there are certain aspects that definitely need to be upgraded. And in order to support the construction of the project, the plan is to upgrade that road.
Who would be the best witness to ask specifically about the details of developing that road or clearing it?
Brian Patton can address more in terms of the local specifics, and in terms of maybe the engineering aspects, if that's what you're asking about, it would be Colin, our
Okay.
engineer.
Have there been any studies or potential concerns with wildlife, particularly endangered species on the site during project development?
Yeah, there's been several studies for the project area, including environmental studies and wildlife studies.
And do you know generally what any concerns that were identified in those studies, or?
Not at the solar project site, no.
So there is a UK forest research plot near the site. I believe Robinson Forest is the name. Could you describe any communications and agreements that you have with UK concerning this forest?
Sure. We've been working with the University of Kentucky to preserve some test areas where they're growing trees to see how easy or difficult it is to grow trees on reclaimed mining sites. And we've agreed to maintain certain areas within the project for them to continue those tests and continue to grow those trees.
And would that be within the boundaries of the project site, or was that like within the buffer of the project site?
There's actually within the boundary of the project site, and there's another University of Kentucky site that's just outside, well, just around, I think, outside the edge of the project. I'm not sure which of the University of Kentucky sites you were referring to. But the one, there is a University of Kentucky site within the project area. And we've agreed with the University of Kentucky to sign an agreement to make sure that they have access and that we preserve those sites.
I believe there was also discussion about using the UK research site as a wildlife corridor.
Mhm.
Is that correct? Could you elaborate on how it will be used as wildlife corridor, or which witness would be?
Sure.
best able to comment?
It'll be incorporated into the wildlife corridor as part of the work that we're doing. Rivian is one of the power purchase agreement, one of the customers of the project, and they're working with the Nature Conservancy. And as part of the work that we're doing with those parties, we've agreed to incorporate a wildlife corridor on the project, up to 300 feet wide. And the area where we're focusing is kind of in the middle of the project, running north to south, which is where the University of Kentucky area is, so it kind of gets folded into that wildlife corridor.
Do you know if there are any, either filed into the record or that Starfire has available, that have like maps depicting the wildlife corridor and its incorporation with the UK research forest?
Yeah, that's included in the maps in the application.
Do you remember which portion of the application?
The site layout of the original application includes both the corridor area and the UK tree areas.
Okay. Per the geotechnical desktop survey, there are a number of inactive oil and gas wells on the site. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know whether these wells were plugged and abandoned, properly plugged and abandoned, per Kentucky statute and regulation?
We haven't done additional investigation into those wells other than what is publicly available. So they've been identified and they've been surveyed. So to the extent that they are plugged or inactive, it's either through the Kentucky state information or through visual validations that we've done.
Has there been any communication with any owners of gas wells or gathering pipelines on the site?
Yes, there has been some communication.
Could you characterize that communication or expand on it?
Sure, we're working on communicating with any and all of the oil and gas leaseholders, the holders that have wells at the site, active or inactive, as part of our diligence on the project, and eventually before start of construction, we'll have to work with those oil and gas companies in order to get in order to make sure that there's the rights available and the proper setbacks to any active oil and well sites. And so that's a work in progress.
Do you know who retains the mineral rights for the coal, oil, and gas on the site?
And there's a large number of mineral right holders. Note, though, that primary mineral for that site is the surface coal. And the surface coal has been mined already. There are some, I think, seams underneath, and so mineral rights subsurface. And we're working on making sure that we've identified all of those holders and making sure that we have the rights to be able to construct the project. We have the surface rights for the project, but in addition to the surface rights, we have to work with the mineral right holders.
Kind of going into that a bit, do you have assurances that basically that another company or another party couldn't come back and drill more oil and gas wells in the future, or likewise couldn't mine those underground coal seams?
Based on the analysis and research we've done, mining those underground coal seams is extremely unlikely. In terms of the oil and gas, that's a work in progress as we communicate with those leaseholders and work through the process. Most of the oil and gas wells out there are pretty old and they're not producing a whole lot. And so I think, there's a lot more attractive areas in the country, and that's where the oil and gas wells have shifted towards. So, it's based on the discussions we've had so far, and hopefully as this process plays out, we think there's a good process in place and a good likelihood that we'll get all those rights from the oil and gas leaseholders.
Okay, but that's something that you'll continue to work on?
Yeah, it's a work in
basically.
progress.
Yeah, continue to communicate. This is gonna probably be better for another witness, but I'll just get your take on it
Sure.
and who you think would be best. Are there any subsidence concerns on the site? Like, the concerns with the soil or the earth moving down in a way that damages equipment or construction for the solar site?
Right. In general, I wouldn't say there's concerns, and that's part of the reason we do the geotech analysis. And so we've done the desktop, and we've actually done some on-site geotech analysis and drilling and testing. Just because it's a unique site, that's definitely one of the unique aspects of this project. There are very few projects that are on retired coal mines. So we've done a lot of diligence in order to address that concern, and there's a number of different technologies that we can use in order to, for the solar panels and the posts and the pilings. Colin Cannon, our engineer, can maybe speak in a little bit more detail, but I would say that we've identified that as a unique attribute of the project and both done analysis and looked at different technologies to help address those concerns.
Okay, and just to clarify, so the project site is comprised primarily of reclaimed coal mine, correct? Okay, could you go into detail about or explain how much of the site is yet to be reclaimed versus how much has been reclaimed?
Brian Patton can give a little more detail, but I'd say that most of it, the vast majority of it, has been reclaimed.
Do you know if there are any maps in the record that show the current status of reclamation, the reclamation project?
There is a map that we provided, I believe it was in the responses, that shows the different phases of reclamation and which parts of the project site, which phases they're at in terms of being reclaimed.
Thank you, those are all my questions, Commissioner.
Mr. Hunt?
Yeah, all right. So if I ask you anything, point me to who the best person is for
Sure.
this. But I saw there's 25 acres you'll be reforesting for the project.
Yes.
Could you give me a total of how much how much acres will be deforested total? Is it just the 25?
The 25 will be, let's call it reforesting, adding back to the project area after the project's been constructed. I think there's roughly 150 acres of forested area right now that'll be cleared. Robert Roy can confirm the number. Bob Roy?
Right. And then I was looking through the application, and I just kind of wanted some clarity here. Regarding the partnership with the universities, non-government organizations for the native grass and seed mix assessment, I looked through the community benefits slides, and I just want to confirm that's
Sure.
the Nature Conservancy and then the University of Kentucky. Is that correct?
Yes, we're talking to and we're looking at partnering with both of those.
Great. And then will there be a member of the community representation team that'll be there full-time to address concerns from the community throughout the project?
What do you mean by that? Let just.
Will there be anybody, within the community that if anybody has concerns, it's not just kind of a number they would call, but is there anybody that would be there to be able to meet or, talk about any of the concerns they have?
Potentially. I would say that, the company will have, not just a telephone number, but people at the site and people who can address concerns. Obviously, I as lead developer and others are available to answer questions and work with people. And we're working with the community, including the Foundation for Appalachian Kentucky, about potentially, a partnership and how we can work with the community help the community financially and also in terms of creating jobs or job programs and encourage local labor. So something like that could be included.
Okay. And I'll take a moment to commend you for the donation to the local community fund. I was wondering also kind of how that was selected. Was there input from locals for that, or was it something you as a developer identified? Kind of how did you settle in that group?
It was a number of people who worked together to figure out like who are the right partners in the area, who know the area, the local community, and how best funds can be used in the local community. We have consultants in the state who helped us with that, as well as conversations with people in the community and the counties.
Okay, great. And then the study on the economic impact, it kind of is predicated upon the idea of a pilot and IRB.
Yes.
Are you in the process of actually pursuing those?
We've recently begun the process, yes. Or I should say we recently began the conversations.
Okay. And then I wanted to ask a little bit about, we've already kind of covered a little bit of this EPC content, but I want to ask it maybe a different way.
Sure.
So just give me your best shot at it.
Okay.
I was wondering if your selection of an EPC will be kind of predicated upon their history with local employment. So in some instances, we've seen people select from a
Yes.
list of contractors that have a existing relationship with local trade organizations in Kentucky. Is that something you're going to weigh in that process?
Our decision on the EPC will definitely be based on previous experience and experience within the state of Kentucky. Yeah,
All right, that's all I have.
okay.
Mr. Weinberg? Do you have any questions?
The only question I would have is, I guess, the site has been used for recreational ATVs and whatnot. Would that and would the main road be inhibited from that? And what's the thought on that?
When you say the main road, can I ask you to clarify which main road you're referring to?
I guess the one that starts from the highway, and there's a couple that go all the way through the site.
So right now, the main road, I think from the highway to the project site is the Starfire haul route. And that haul route will continue to be maintained by the mining company and will continue to be used by the mining company. That is not going to be our main access route. We will be working on the road and creating a different access road on 1087. And so I don't anticipate there being any changes to the current main road and haul route. With regards to the project site and the project area, the solar area will be fenced off in terms of where there are solar arrays, but there will continue to be access roads, including access roads that the mining company currently uses and will use in the future. So I presume that those are the roads you're referring to in terms of what people are using. And so I'm not familiar enough to know what they're using to identify that they're the same, but as far as the mining roads go, those are going to remain open to access as they currently are.
And then the existing natural gas, oil and gas wells and pipelines, I heard you mention briefly about that, but I guess that would be, it wouldn't be close to those, or how would that be handled?
When you say not close, are you asking about the solar panels, or what are you asking about?
Well, just the project, I guess, or would it be set back a certain amount of feet from each well, or how would you handle being close to the natural gas and oil wells and pipelines?
Yeah, setbacks is the primary way to kind of handle it, and setbacks from wells, setbacks from gas lines. And so maintaining access and maintaining the ability for any oil or gas companies to continue with those, producing oil or gas from those wells.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Anything else? Okay. I just have one quick question. Have you had a chance to talk at all with the local area about what the workforce skills are? And maybe where you can hire where they have skills, and if not, will you be setting up a training program or working with someone in that area?
We have had discussions, and we're working on kind of setting up a program, and there's been a kind of a long history with Starfire, and including potentially working with the DOE. And so there's a lot of work that went into creating that DOE application, and a lot of discussions and qualifiers for that DOE grant, and that included workforce development and training for the job. Unfortunately, we weren't selected for the DOE grant, but a lot of those things that are in that application and that we started working on, the conversations that we had, we've continued with several of those conversations, and a lot of the commitments and the ideas in terms of benefits to the community and hiring locally are still part of the project plan.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Redirect,
None, Your Honor. Thank you.
anybody? Okay. Can this witness be excused?
I was going to hold him in case there's anything to clean up at the end.
Okay.
But we are ready for our next witness.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next witness is Annie Winter.
Good morning. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
I do.
And please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Annie Winter. My address is 4101 Cox Road, Suite 100, Glen Allen, Virginia.
Thank you. Counsel?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Winter, who do you work for?
I work for Tetra Tech.
And what is your title at Tetra Tech?
My title is Mid-Atlantic Renewables Team Lead.
And what was your role with respect to this application?
I was the project manager overseeing several of the studies to support the application, to include the traffic analysis, the acoustic analysis, the decommissioning plan, the glint glare study, and some of the visual simulations.
And is there anything in the record that you'd like to clarify, update, or correct at this time?
There is no.
That I'll turn to the witness.
Okay. Mr. Williams?
Yes, just a few questions. Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you aware of any contact that has been made with local agencies concerning road development for the project or traffic use?
I am not.
No other questions, Commissioner?
Okay. Sir.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Weinberg?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I don't have any either.
All right. Thank you very much.
Rita?
Yeah?
No?
No?
Okay. Can
Thank
this-
you, Your Honor.
Are there any objections, or can this witness be excused?
I think we should probably hold Ms. Winters in case there's anything that
Okay.
comes up along
Great.
the way, but otherwise we can call our next witness.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next witness is Rich Kirkland.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
I do.
And please state your name and address for the record.
Richard Kirkland, 9408 North Field Court, Raleigh, North Carolina.
Great, welcome back.
Thank you.
Counsel?
Yeah, Mr. Kirkland, who do you work for?
Kirkland Appraisals.
And what is your role there?
I'm the owner and main appraiser.
And what was your role in preparing materials for this application?
I complete the property value impact analysis.
Is there anything in the record that you'd like to correct, modify, or update at this time?
No.
I'll turn to the witness.
Mr. Williams?
Good morning, Mr. Kirkland.
Good morning.
I just had maybe a general discussion or a general question. So this site is unique in that it's relative to some other cases, and where there's a huge distance between the project site and local residences, and that's typically the primary focus, right, of the property value impact analysis. Could you discuss the differences in your methodology between when you're looking at a site like this that is large distance from residences and one that's a bit closer to residences, say a few hundred feet?
Again, we're really with these, there isn't significant differences that we're looking at. We're still looking at, for property value impacts, we're looking at visual impacts for the most part, appearances. So those distances in this case are substantial, and but again, the categories, the potential externalities that we would look at, the only potential difference in this one would be because it's, on top of elevation, what kind of visibility is there, and that's been addressed through some visual simulations, I believe.
And then it's primarily when you do your property value impact analysis, it's like residential property, correct?
We focus on residential property. We look at agricultural land sales as well. They're just more challenging to do a paired sales analysis because of differences in soil qualities and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So again, it's a more straightforward comparison. The other reason we focus on residential uses is they are typically sort of more sensitive to adjoining uses and externalities. So if you find an impact on if you're going to find an impact, you're most likely going to find it in the residential category as opposed to other categories such as land. And
did you find any impact concerning agricultural or other uses for the land surrounding the project site?
Again, the land sale analysis we've had so far, no, we're not seeing negative impacts due to proximity to solar development. And in this case, it's also a little bit of a shift from an existing mining use into something else. So there's actually positive impact from that shift as well.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Hill?
I have no questions.
Mr. Weinberg?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. One question, the impact that you did see, is there you said, would it be a positive impact, and do you know roughly what the percentage would be?
Well, when we've got distances, I think the closest house to this one is,
Like 3,000?
yeah, it's 4,200 feet, 4,300 feet to the non-participating home. When you've got distances that are that close to a mile, we're definitely in the territory where we're seeing positive impacts. When we look at things where we have essentially adjoining properties that are over 1,000 feet of effectively preserved land, we're seeing positive impacts. A lot of the ones we're seeing specifically are in the 10% range. Effectively, it's very similar to being next to parks and a preserved open space, woods, forests, things of that nature. So it's very similar to being next to a state forest.
Okay. All right, thank you. Redirect?
None, Your Honor.
Nothing? Okay. Is there any reason why this witness can't be excused?
I don't believe so.
You're excused. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Your Honor, our next witness is Fletcher Mangum.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
I do.
And please state your name and
My name is
address.
Alan Fletcher Mangum, and the address is business address is 4510 Cox Road, Glen Allen, Virginia.
Thank you.
Mr. Mangum, who do you work for?
Mangum Economics,
And your role there?
CEO and founder.
And what was your role in preparation of materials for this application?
I supervise the preparation of all materials for this presentation for our report.
For the, I'm sorry, say again?
I supervise the analysis that was done to support our report.
Okay. And is there anything in the record that you'd like to clarify, modify, or update at this time?
No.
Attend the witness.
Can I ask you to just get closer to the microphone?
sorry.
We're having a little.
My wife tells me I'm soft-spoken.
Thanks. Mr. Williams?
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Just a few questions. So,
how did you, in your economic impact analysis, how did you estimate local employment?
I'm glad you asked that question. I think the previous gentleman, and can I have the exhibit in front of me? Is that?
Yes, certainly.
all right.
Which tab is his? Tab 10.
The way we estimate local employment and to address the issues that were brought up, the gentleman referenced Table 1 in our report, which is an estimate of the employment impact on the locality. So that would be the local region. The way we do that is we take the overall construction budget and we look at, particularly in rural communities like are involved here, that portion of that overall construction budget that we're fairly confident would be done by local contractors or subcontractors. Quite frequently, or usually, that's site prep. We also look at fencing. We also look at buildings, building construction typically. In this case, we really only included site prep. So out of that $166 billion or $166 million overall construction budget, for that estimate, we really use only a small portion. And we do that to be very conservative in terms of what our estimate of local employment would be associated with the construction project. The number he quoted for overall employment, the 200 jobs, is a combination of direct and indirect employment. The indirect employment is that second round of employment that's generated as a result of purchase of goods and services by the construction company, the workers spending their per diem in local restaurants and hotels and that type of thing. And that's what beefs that number up to 200. The appropriate number to look at that, or look in that regard, was the statewide impact, which would have been Table 2 of the report. And I'm sorry, bear with me for a minute. In Table 2, what we estimated would there be 192 statewide. There would be 192 jobs that would be from workers within the state of Kentucky. And I should point out before we leave the local estimate that the construction sector in those counties is roughly 800 employees. So to assume that that construction sector locally would be able to support 85 jobs is a very reasonable expectation. When we look at the statewide number, we're then taking that entire budget and we're putting it over the state. So those components that would not be produced at a local level, like architecture and engineering, but could be produced at a statewide level or within the state as a whole, are included in that analysis. When we do that, we get a number of 192 employees at the construction site that would be from the state of Kentucky. Overall, our total employment then is 496, but again, that's direct and indirect. Total employment on the site will be approximately, our estimate is approximately 310 employees. So the 196 is approximately 60% of that overall total. And those would be the employees or the construction workers that would come in our estimate from the state of Kentucky.
And so just to clarify, the number for local employment is the 85 number.
But that's the total out of that 310 construction workers that we think would be supported by the local economy. And again, it's a very conservative estimate because we are excluding things like fencing, construction of buildings that typically we would include for a rural community. But since the construction sector here is not small, but relatively small, to be as conservative as possible, we excluded those categories.
In your experience, have you seen other projects? In what ways have you seen other projects try to encourage local employment, if possible?
Usually in all the ways that have been discussed. I mean, they will set up local hiring fairs. They will work with the community, work with the local workforce investment boards and others to make sure, because it's in their interest, to make sure they hire as many local workers as possible.
And you generally found these other projects have been able to successfully do that, or at least maximize the potential for local employment?
It definitely maximizes the potential. I mean, the level of success, we work in some rural communities where the construction sector is 40 people. So the likelihood that you're going to get 310 employees out of a sector that's only 40 people large or 40 employees large is relatively small, but it does maximize the potential. And I've had this conversation in these types of meetings before, and by any measure, it's going to be full employment for the existing construction sector within that rural community.
Thank you. Those are all my questions, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. I see you were able to use a lot of data kind of mixed between the developer and then some of it also, being from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And I was curious about a specific number here, the wage and benefits projections you use. Are those, I know they're in implants, are they from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or are you able to kind of factor in something from the developer for those kinds of numbers?
Well, in that case, at a local level, in terms of local wages, the answer is neither of the above. And what that is it reflects a number from, because if it's done by a pilot, it'll be IRB bonds. IRB bonds require a prevailing wage as set by the federal government. So that federal government, or that federal wage, is what we used for those counties to come up with that calculation.
Okay, thank you. And my only other question was, I'm looking at table 14 when I reference this. I'll give you a second to get there.
It's a large report. I might need more than a second.
Yeah, of course.
Could you remind us of the page of the report you're on?
I'm on page 34.
Thank you.
I'm there.
Okay, great. So specifically here, I'm looking at the annual pilot per megawatt. And I'm just curious here, for this value, was that provided by the developer, or do you know kind of how that number was arrived at? Is it based on kind of the standards used for pilots?
The number that was used was $1,500 or $1,500 per megawatt. That is a negotiated settlement which is ongoing with the locality, and in our experience, it would be a very generous pilot payment.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I think you asked my question. Redirect?
Yeah, just a couple of questions, Your Honor. Mr. Mangum, roughly how many of these cases have you done in Kentucky at this point?
3.
3? Okay. Have you seen a pilot payment that was at 1,500 megawatts on any other project in Kentucky?
No,
So that would be the highest one of any of the projects you've seen in Kentucky?
I believe that to be correct.
Have you, in terms of the local impact on the taxes, because there was some discussion about sort of the workforce and how that works out, what would the change in tax revenue to the local community, using that term broadly, be from current use to the use that's proposed by the project?
Current use is approximately $200,000 over a 40-year period in terms of the revenue that would be generated. The revenue that would be generated from, there were 2 scenarios that were used. One of them would include local taxation, the other is a pilot program. The revenue that would be generated, and I need to look that up before I misstate a number.
Yeah, it's okay, take your time.
Revenue that would be generated under scenario 1, where we looked at local taxation, would be $11.2 million over a 40-year period. So it's a roughly 43 times 43 increase in the local revenue over the current state. And the other thing I would point out in that regard is that these are fairly rural communities that have been hard hit by the decrease in the coal employment. So where overall employment increase in Kentucky over the last 5 years was 4.7%, and these localities it was 1.4%. Their unemployment rate is about 2.5 percentage points higher than it is at the statewide level. So these are communities that have seen a decrease in their overall tax base. As a result, they've had to increase their local tax rates fairly significantly over the last period. And this would be a substantial increase in revenue for them. Under the pilot program, the numbers are even larger. $15.6 million in local revenue over a 40-year period, as opposed to roughly $200,000 currently over a 40-year period.
And do you know what is the rough approximation, or if you know exactly, of the expense that the project brings? Meaning, like, how many actual local services is the project going to utilize once it's operational?
In terms of once it's operational, it depends on how you're measuring that.
Yeah, so my question is really about, like, what is the net benefit, right? So if we're talking about roughly an $11 million or a $15 million increase to local revenue, what is the, that's sort of the gross number. What is the net number? Do you know that?
It would be $11.6 million minus $200,000.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
No regret, no regrets.
Okay. Any objection why this witness couldn't be excused?
I do not.
Okay, thank you, you're excused.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next witness is Mr. Robert Roy.
Good morning. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
I do.
And please state your name and address.
Robert Roy, corporate address is 515 North Flagler Ave, West Palm Beach, Florida.
Thank you. Counsel?
Mr. Roy, who do you work for?
Bright Night Power.
And what is your title there?
I'm a director of permitting.
And what was your role in preparation of materials for this application?
I worked with the internal project development team and our external consultants to make sure appropriate studies and analyses were completed to support the application.
Is there anything in the record that you'd like to modify, clarify, update, or amend at this time?
No, there isn't.
I'll turn to the witness.
Mr. Williams?
No questions, Commissioner.
I have no questions.
Mr. Weinberg?
No questions.
Okay. You've had experience doing project management on these solar sites, correct?
Yes.
Have you done one on a reclaimed mine prior?
No, I have
So this is the
not.
first one? Okay. Is there anything that kind of keeps you up at night thinking about getting the site ready and anything like that that could be of concern?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I think it's a good use of a retired mine to convert to renewable energy. And so I'm not seeing anything that's overly, that appears to be overly onerous to overcome on the site.
So I have redirect?
None.
No? Nothing? Okay, any reason this witness can't be excused?
I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Our next witness is Brian Patton.
Good morning, please raise your right hand. And do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
I do, Your Honor.
And please state your name and address.
My name is Dexter Brian Patton III. My address is 240 Bob Jeff Road, Shelleyville, Kentucky.
Great, thank you. Counsel?
Thank you. Mr. Patton, who do you work for?
I'm an outside consultant working for Bright Night Power.
And what is your, well, I guess you covered your title there. What was your role with respect to the application materials in this matter?
Acting as outside consultant, my role is to work with the internal team to pull together the information for this as it related to many of the aspects of the mining, land, and so forth.
And is there anything in the record that you'd like to amend, clarify, or update at this time?
No, sir.
I just had a couple of questions for you, just to cover a few things that Mr. Gill, I think, passed on to you. There was a question about access to the site. First, I wanted to clarify, is it Bell's Fork Road, or is it a different road that the project will use to access the site?
So the project will go up road, it's Kentucky 1087, which is referred to as Balls Fork Road.
Balls Fork Road, okay.
And then we turn off onto what was the old Lick Branch Hall Road, which is our private access that we've obtained to get onto the higher side.
Okay, and there was a question about, when we were out there for the site visit, there was some trees and looked like debris in the road. Do you have any idea of sort of the amount of effort or the time or the expense it'll take to get that cleared and get the road operating for construction purposes?
The road previously was a coal haul road and it was maintained in good shape. There's a space there of about 150 feet that will have to be regraded, the ditches reconstructed, and the fallen trees removed. At that point, the road should be accessible and open.
So it's basically 150 feet where it's been blocked, but on the other side of the blockage that we saw, it's basically just clear road again,
It's
is
clear
that right?
road, clear gravel road all the way
Okay.
up to the top.
Okay. There was a question about subsidence on the property where the project is going to be subsided. Has there been any study regarding the potential for subsidence?
Yes, we looked at, and subsidence is, there's two different words. There's differential settlement or subsidence. We've completed and have an ongoing study, both of differential settlement on the site, where we placed over 20 monuments, permanent monuments on the ground. And monthly, we have a certified PLS that goes out, does a survey of the ground movement, and we have found that ground movement to almost be non-existent. We also did a look back over history of the 50-plus years of the surface mine itself, and looked at this, at the backfilling and grading and compaction that went along there as well, and didn't see any evidence of any type of surface movement.
And I assume that's what you're looking for, right?
That's what we're looking for.
Okay. There was a question about maps and that show the reclamation sort of status on the site. Are you aware of anything in the record that would reflect that?
Yes.
Can you point us to where that is?
You'd have to pull the map up from our response to, that has the phase 1, 2, and 3 releases.
Okay. Yeah, can you just write it down? I can't hear. My hearing's not that good. Can you flip to RFI 2-2, which I think is tab, looks like probably 22.
Yes, sir.
Is this the map you were thinking of?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's all the questions that I had for this witness. I'll tender in for further examination.
Okay. Mr. Moore?
All right, good morning. Since you already have the map for the reclamation process open, if you could just generally walk us through what the reclamation project looks like and what happens at each of the phases based on this map.
Certainly. The mining company places a reclamation bond up upon beginning of the mining operations under their DNR permit. As the mining progresses, part of that progression of mining is also the reclamation of the property as the coals are moved and the site is regraded according to the DNR permit application. As an area is final graded and as that grading plan matches what is in the DNR permit, the applicant performs a seeding operation and then applies for what's called a phase 1 bond release. And so these permits are broken up into bonding increments, and over that period of time, when that seeding is completed and that phase 1 is applied for, the applicant receives 65% of their bond back or reduced at that point. Then the application goes through a 2-year growing cycle in which the department will monitor the vegetative growing that goes on that site, and the applicant will file for a phase 2 release. That's after 2 years of growing, and then they will receive another 25% back, and then there's another 3 years of growing that goes on along with planting of trees or any sort of reclamation maintenance that may go on. And in a perfect world, at the end of the 5 years, if the area has been reclaimed, regraded, and the vegetation has been placed back on site according to plan, the applicant files for a complete release for the rest of that bond money. And then the department, with the help and oversight of the Office of Surface Mining, Federal Office of Surface Mining, will grant a full and complete release, and then the applicant no longer has responsibility for the property.
Okay, so the purple color in the map shows full reclamation.
Yes.
And then the orange or red is phase 1. And you said phase 1 is about 3 to 5 years from full reclamation?
Phase 1 is when the project site has been graded and initially seeded.
Okay. And from that point, about how long is it to full reclamation?
5 years is the minimum term.
And then for the portions that are an active mining site, that will also go into the phase 1?
Yes, the mining company is currently regrading that site and is seeding that site as they work through their final process of reclamation there.
And just in general, what are some concerns in the construction portion of the project when you're locating panels or anything else on the, phase one versus phase two for fully reclaimed? Like, what are the differences in consideration?
I really don't have any concerns as it relates to what's going on with the mining operations. All of the blasting or the coal extraction portion of the area is off of our phase one area. It's away. So the grading and seeding aspects that would be going on in what's listed as active area would be no different than the grading applications we would be doing on our general civil work on our portion of the site.
Okay, and just as a refresher, this is probably in the I'm sure this is in the record. But in terms of the solar panel construction, how much will be taking place on what is now active mining land versus what's fully reclaimed or in phase one or two?
Well, at some point, there will be solar construction on that. It'll be phased. The construction process will be phased. We don't have that design and that phasing completed at this point, so that may be a question for Colin.
Okay. There were some, when on direct, there was some discussion of studies on the subsidence of the soil to analyze it. Is any of that already in the record? Are those studies in the record currently?
I'm not aware if those are in the record as of right now.
Could they be provided in a posterior data request if requested?
Upon acknowledgement of Bright Night, yes.
Okay. And just kind of to address a little bit the UK research forest, I understand that they'll have some access to the site to conduct research, and there have been agreements. Are there any concerns with their access to the site, or what impacts, if any, would you think that would have on the project?
Very little concerns at all. I was there when those sites were initially put in on the site, and then have seen those grow and mature over the last 30 years. The university's been very good to work with in terms of that study, and Bright Night obviously wants to maintain that study as it goes forward, so I don't see any issues related to access or that site to continue.
It's my understanding there, in the record, there are a number of inactive oil and gas wells on the site. Do you know whether these oil and gas wells have been properly plugged per Kentucky statute or regulation?
I can't personally attest that they were or were not. As Mr. Gill stated, it's our assumption based upon the data that's in the state oil and gas records that those would have or should have been done properly. Most of the gas companies, oil and gas companies that are on site are sophisticated oil and gas companies that should have followed the law.
Would any further studies conducted prior to construction reveal that information or confirm?
I'm not aware.
And how would that impact your construction process or the planning process for the construction?
You'll be more specific on your question.
Yes. So how do you take into account the location of oil and gas wells on the site when doing a construction plan? I understand that there are setbacks from inactive oil and gas wells, but if you know it's active versus inactive, or you think it might be active, how does that impact the construction?
Well, we obviously go through the record and look at the current oil and gas permit that the applicant had with oil and gas to look at whatever setbacks are denoted there. And then it's a negotiated setback from that point further with the oil and gas company to determine what's a safe distance or what's an applicable distance to be away for them both to have access to their well, tend their well, and have access to their pipelines.
Okay, how will the project site mitigate any potential surface runoff, or what have your studies shown concerning that?
Well, at this point, and this would be a question public for Mr. Ray as well, of course, this being a coal mining site, there are both active and inactive storm runoff facilities and structures already in place to handle any sort of runoff from that activity, both currently and in the past. We're working with a third-party consultant and the mining company to take into account those structures and add those structures into what would be a stormwater plan for construction after the fact. The mining company usually is held to a very robust standard that may be higher than what the construction requirement would be later on.
And is there any concern from that the project could result in increased risk of flooding, considering the slopes and everything else in the area?
The project site's going to be on the flat portion of the mine, of the old property, so side slopes or steep slopes, things like that would not be an area we would be doing work in.
So that kind of brings me to my next portion. Is there, you said that their project site or the construction site will mostly be focused on flat land. Is there any concern during the construction phase with slope failure or anything like that?
Not at all.
Okay. All right, thank you. Those are all my questions, Commissioner.
I just have two questions. This is a bit more of a general question, but are there any concerns you have kind of about the timeline of the project, given we're at different phases across kind of reclamation here? Do you think there are any potential, delays that the project could face from that, or have you factored that into the equation already?
I don't have any concerns about that. We've been working very much hand in hand with the current mining company that's there, and they're positive on the project, so we have regular updates and discussions with them about where they are in their mining sequence and where we are in our schedule.
The second question might not be for you, so I'm gonna ask you just to give your best shot. I saw in the one of the requests for information there were cemeteries kind of located around this. I think the number was 10. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I could tell, these aren't going to be impacted by this project. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, so people will still have access to those cemeteries if they want to visit them.
That's correct.
All
Yes,
right.
we will maintain access for those people to be able to go in and out.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
You're stealing all my questions today. Just one quick question. In reading through your testimony, you don't anticipate any repairs or upgrades that have to be done to the roads or bridges or anything to start the project. Is that correct?
As it relates to the state highways or the current public roads?
Yes.
No, I don't anticipate anything at this point.
Okay. Thank you. Redirect?
No redirect.
Nothing? Any reason this witness can't be excused?
No, ma'am.
Okay, excused. With that, I think we'll take a quick 15-minute break. And I think then we just have, one more witness?
I think one or two.
One or two?
One more.
One more? And
That's
then we'll push through, and then we won't have to break for lunch then.
That sounds good.
Are we done? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, we are back on the record, and counsel, do you want to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor, Colin Cannon. And this is our last witness.
Okay. Good morning, can you raise your right hand? And do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under penalty of perjury?
I do.
And please state your name and address for the record.
Colin Cannon, 515 North Flagler Drive, West Palm Beach, Florida, is the business address.
Thanks. Counsel?
Yes, thank you. Take a seat. Where do you work, Mr. Cannon?
Bright Night Power,
And what is your title there?
Senior Director of Project Engineering.
And what was your role in preparation of the application and the associated materials?
I'm a relative newcomer to the project, and I assisted in preparing some of the RFIs.
Is there anything in the record that you'd like to amend, update, or clarify at this time?
No.
I'll turn to the witness.
Mr. Webb?
Yes, good morning. So first, I'd like to ask you about the access road that's going to be cleared, 1087 or Balls Fork Road. Could you just, from your perspective, give me information on how it will be cleared, what that process will look like, and in general?
Really, the means and methods would be by the EPC contractor, so I'm not sure I have much more to add on top of Mr. Pat.
Does it look to be like a costly or difficult clearing for the road?
Not out of the ordinary.
And I understand that so there's about 100, I can't remember the exact number. There's a certain portion of the road that is blocked, and then past it, it is not. Is that correct?
I'm unsure.
Only a portion of the road is blocked. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know, or have you seen the site, or have you done any studies on that portion of road that is past the blockage? Is that would you say good condition, or require additional work?
I don't know.
Okay. Can you, did you do any research or do any reports on specifically the reclamation process and what the construction process will look on a reclaimed surface mine?
I did not.
Do you know what some of the specific concerns with construction, solar panels, things like that would be on a coal surface mine?
I think some of the geotechnical recommendations are outlined in the report that was in the application, and those would summarize some best practices for the site.
Thank you. Those are all my questions, Commissioner.
Okay, Mr. Hill?
I have no questions for this witness.
Okay, Mr. Weinberg?
No questions.
I don't have any. Redirect?
I have no redirect.
Any reason this witness can't be excused?
No.
Okay, you're excused, thank you.
We have no further witnesses. We've got David Gill and Annie Winter. We could recall if you have any remaining questions. Otherwise, that concludes our witnesses.
Okay. Is there anything you want to follow up on?
No, Commissioner.
Mr. Weinberg, anything?
Nope.
Okay. And, let's see. Secretary Lyons couldn't be here today, but we've incorporated all of his questions, I think, correct?
Yes.
And the chair couldn't be here today, and I've got hers. So, anything else with that? We'll move on to, let's see, the final order. When does the final order have to be entered?
August 1st.
August 1st, okay. I don't think we have any motions, correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
And data requests?
A few,
A
Commissioner.
few, okay. So help me out on the timeline here. When do you think that the data requests will go out?
I believe I can have those out June 27th.
Okay,
That's,
and then
That's right.
responsives, council, do you need a week to turn those around?
How many do you think there are?
I wouldn't say more than 5.
Okay.
Less than 5.
Can we have 2 weeks, Your Honor?
Yeah.
Sure.
That
So
would be July 11th, I believe.
July 11th? Okay, and then what do we need? So there wouldn't be any time after that for anything, just the final order?
No, or briefs if they
Briefs,
choose.
if you need it?
I think by statute, we've got 10 days. We haven't discussed that, but if we need one, we'll limit ourselves to the statutory deadline, whatever it is.
Okay, does that work for you?
Yeah. That's fine.
All right. Well, with that, we will adjourn. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
See, I got to do it today.